What if everything you knew about death was wrong? There are places in this world where death is not the end, where the dead do not go in the ground. They go inside you. In some corners of the world, they don't bury the dead. They eat them, not for horror, not for hunger, but for love. To forget them, that's the true death, so they keep them close, closer than skin. Flesh roasted, bones crushed, ashes stirred into soup. The dead, living on, inside you. They believed eating their loved ones would free their souls, prevent evil spirits, even pass on wisdom. To the modern world, it's called cannibalism. To them, it was sacred, the truest expression of love. And by the time we're done, you won't just understand it, you'll feel it. But to truly feel it, we have to first understand why. What could possibly drive someone to eat the people they love? Let's begin, not with meat or blood, but with the mind. The psychology of endocannibalism. Endocannibalism. It sounds horrific, doesn't it? The idea of eating the dead. But what if it's not about the body? What if it's about the soul? Endocannibalism is the ritual consumption of deceased members of one's own group, family, kin, or tribe. To the outsider, this might seem barbaric, but for those who practiced it, it was never brutal. It was sacred, emotional, purposeful. It's not savagery, not barbarism. It is the ultimate rebellion against disappearance. When modern people bury their dead, they hide them, seal them away, out of sight. But these tribes asked a different question. What if the greatest horror is not death, but being forgotten? So they chose the most intimate act imaginable, not to discard the body, but to make it part of their own, flesh becoming flesh, bone becoming bone, a final embrace, closer than any hug could ever be. For these cultures, to consume the dead wasn't about morbid consumption. It was about keeping them close, making them live on. In their world, death wasn't an end. It was a continuation. To eat the dead was to defy oblivion. But ideas like these, they don't just exist in theory. They lived in real places with real people. And nowhere was that more haunting or more tragic than in the eastern highlands of Papua New Guinea. Let me take you there. The Fore people, Papua New Guinea. In this land of shadows and spirits, death was not goodbye. It was a beginning. To the Fore people, a body wasn't discarded. It was welcomed home, piece by piece, bite by bite. To eat the dead was to carry them forward, to shelter the soul within your own body. But hidden in this ancient embrace was a ticking bomb. They laughed, but not with joy. They laughed as their minds collapsed. First tremors, then mania, then silence. The tribe called it Kuru, the laughing death. They thought it was a curse, witchcraft, spirits seeking revenge. But it wasn't. 1960s, a young Shirley Lindenbaum trudges through the mud with her notebook, eyes sharp, heart heavy. She uncovered a truth more terrifying than any curse. Prions, rogue proteins, invisible, indestructible, and deadly, especially when passed through the brain. The ritual they believed kept their ancestors close was killing their children. They ended the practice. They had no choice. But something ancient, something sacred, was buried with it. Even now, some whisper that modern burials feel like abandonment, like forgetting the soul. And they weren't alone. The Fore weren't the only ones who turned grief into communion. Across oceans and continents, other tribes whispered the same truth. To love the dead is to carry them inside, and we're just getting started. The Wari, Brazilian Amazon. Thousands of miles away, across the vast Amazon, the Wari saw death in their own way. To bury someone? That was cruel. Letting a loved one rot in the soil alone? Unthinkable. The body is just a leaf, but the soul is the tree. When death comes, we must plant it back in the living. To the Wari, burial wasn't rest. It was exile, a soul trapped in rotting flesh, screaming in the underworld. So they performed the ultimate homecoming, not eating the dead, but harvesting them. Each bite brought him back, not as flesh, but as strength, blooming quietly in my chest. What your people call cannibalism, we call resurrection. They weren't consuming death, they were farming eternity. The Yanomami, Venezuela and Brazil. Further north, in the forests of Venezuela and Brazil, the Yanomami had their own sacred farewell. Here, the flesh was not eaten. It was returned to ash. The body was burned, the bones crushed, the ashes mixed into a sacred banana soup. Each person in the family took a portion. Each one said goodbye, together. To them, it wasn't cannibalism. It was communion, a final act of unity, a soul at peace, a legacy shared. Grief passed through the lips of those who remained. Melanesian tribes, Fiji, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea. Across the islands of Melanesia, from Fiji to the forests of Papua New Guinea, death carried its own meaning. Here, the body held power, wisdom, spiritual force. In these islands, flesh was currency, bone was legacy, and consumption was the ultimate transaction. To eat kin was to absorb their essence. To eat enemies, to claim victory. Some did it for survival, others for ritual, but in every act there was belief, purpose. This was not chaos, it was code. Not savagery, but ceremony. Each bite a message. We remember, we carry, we become. They didn't consume death, they consumed life and became part of it. Why did they do this? To us, this may seem unthinkable, but to them, our ways might seem colder. We seal our dead in boxes, hide pain with silk and flowers, distance, disguise, detachment. But the Fore, the Wari, the Yanomami, they faced it, held it, tasted it. This was love, desperate and raw, not moving on, but holding on in the only way they knew, rethinking the unthinkable. Their rituals might feel alien, but grief? Grief is universal. And love sometimes wears the strangest masks. The last bite. This wasn't about blood or bone. It was about memory, about refusing to let go, even when the body is gone. The practice wasn't just about death. It was a way of honoring and preserving legacy. For these tribes, consuming the deceased was a sacred ritual to keep the ancestors' memory alive. These rituals weren't savagery. They were acts of respect, preserving identity and spiritual connections through culture. It wasn't madness, it was meaning. Different cultures process grief and memory in ways we can learn from. History wasn't clean, it wasn't kind, but it was human. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.